Hello. Lee Bullen, indie author, presents X, Chapter 7, Flight and Fancy. If you've missed previous episodes, don't worry. Enjoy this one, it's fantastic. Go back, check out the others. You'll slot straight in with this phenomenal story. A romantic comedy about lost love and lookalikes. Chapter 7, Flight and Fancy. As Nick, that's our protagonist of course, said a long goodbye to the coffee house barista at the front door, his dressing gown opened and presented an elderly neighbour making her way up the stairs with an unwelcome eyeful. She held her gaze a little longer than necessary before tutting her disapproval and ambling to the next floor. "Call me," the barista said, mimicking a phone with her fingers as if the simple request needed visual clarification, and merrily skipped down the stairs to join a string of pedestrians busying along Camden High Street. If you remember in the last episode, Nick picked up a lookalike, a barista. While in the company of Lucy, our female protagonist. "You're worse than Benito Mussolini, Nicholas," Konrad screamed from the sofa the moment Nick closed the front door. "Abusing people for your own selfish gain." "Mussolini? Really?" he replied, outstretching his arms to enjoy a hearty yawn. "Sort your dressing gown out. I've just had breakfast," Konrad said, needlessly visualising the wardrobe malfunction with erratic finger gestures. Nick joined Konrad on the sofa and gave him an emphatic slap on the thigh, further angering his already tetchy roommate. "Nicholas, I swear." "Still on Nicholas, are we? Calm down, Con." "I'm not in the mood," he warned. Nick bounced happily in his seat. "Well, she was a little firework." "So I heard through the wall," Konrad replied dryly. Nick tickled his ribs, forcing him to jump from the sofa. "Don't make me nipple twist you again, because I bloody will." "I had an amazing night," Nick continued through his dreamy gaze. "Riding high, are ya?" Konrad said dully as he straightened his pyjama top. "God, she reminded me of Sophia," he said with a grin. "This is Sophia, this is the girl he's obsessed about with the lookalike fixes that he needs to remind himself of a previous time. Not so much in looks, but in bed with the lights off. I've just had 12 hours back with my babe." Konrad's face screwed like a baby sucking a lemon. For any parents that have done that. "Just listen to yourself. This isn't real, Nick," he shouted at his nonplussed friend on the sofa, still high on happiness. This irritated Konrad further, so he stood in front of Nick, leaning forwards like a darts player at the hockey, and took aim with a firm pointed finger. "What's real is the Italian witch is going out with the gallery owner you smashed up, and you could go to prison as a result," he said, jutting his finger as if throwing darts and popping the feel-good bubble Nick was revelling in. He rebalanced his weight and raised his finger in preparation for the next go. "That woman is toxic in you now. She left and you turned whatever feelings you had into poison, which is slowly destroying your life." Nick's expression stiffened as Konrad realigned his stance and again took aim. "And you're barely working. It's funny, you're so ashamed of your dad but fail to realise that if you carry on like this, you're also going to end up living in a cave, and it won't be through choice." If you remember in the last episode, it was revealed that Nick's father is a hippie living in El Medino in Tenerife. Sensing his point was well made, Konrad left with a perfect score of 180, appropriately slamming the bedroom door upon his victorious entrance. Amanda passed Lucy a plate of toast and tightened the belt around her slackening dressing gown. Lucy's glum demeanour failed to acknowledge her, and Amanda cowered at the back of her head as her sister devoured breakfast without word. "More tea?" Amanda asked, probing for interaction. Lucy slid a cup to the edge of the table to signal acceptance. "Something wrong?" "I'm fine," Lucy answered. Amanda resisted the temptation to dispute the dubious assessment and refilled the kettle as Lucy continued eating in icy silence. "How did it go at the gig last night?" Amanda offered as a palatable tidbit of conversation. So well written, isn't it? Fantastic author. "Fine," Lucy said. Amanda was annoyed, her mouth tightened and her nostrils flared. The tension in the room smothered her patience. "Oh, stop fobbing me off with fine. I'm not a bloody boyfriend, I'm your sister, and I understand the use of fine in that tone." "True," Lucy conceded. "Sorry." "So what is it?" Not right now, please. I don't really know myself. Well, whenever you want to talk. Thanks, Lucy said, and finished her toast. Amanda returned to the tea-making duties, but was again unable to complete the simple task, turning to Lucy for one last stab. So that's it? You're just going to leave me hanging? Amanda, is it Nick? What? You've been spending a lot of time together recently, and I noticed... Amanda paused. Noticed what? Nothing. No, what have you noticed? Amanda considered withholding her observation, but chose to cough it out like unwanted phlegm. I've noticed there haven't been any Christopher lookalikes around here lately, she said, scanning Lucy's face for reaction. She remained still as her cheeks reddened and she shriveled in her chair. Yeah, I'm aware of that too. That's a good thing, isn't it? I suppose. So what's going on with Nick? Amanda asked, a little too bluntly for Lucy. Nothing. Can we please stop talking about him? Fine, Amanda said firmly, turning to the tea again. Fine, Lucy huffed, again wrapping her dressing gown tight round her body. A frosty silence enveloped the room. Everything trembled on tenterhooks. Not content that the matter was over, Amanda thought she'd cut the atmosphere with a nerve-splintering chainsaw. I will just say, she began with full intent, that I'm glad you're finally moving on, but falling for a man without an emotional marble in his head. She paused for effect, while Lucy's mouth lowered like a drawbridge. Fantastic, right? With the serious issues that he has, she added, an octave higher, would be the most disastrous thing you could do right now. Amanda felt better. She blew out a glorious weightlifting sigh. A sigh similar in magnitude to the great royal sigh exhaled by Elizabeth I after the Spanish Armada came a cropper. For Lucy, the words were heard but not absorbed, which was sufficient for her pride to raise the drawbridge, light up the moat, and call for archers. Red mist rose behind her eyes. All she felt was pure dislike for her sister, and all communication had to be broken with immediate effect. She decided to give the most hurtful look she could muster, then storm out, march into her room, and slamming the door upon her grand bed-flopping entrance. Like strangers in transit, Nick and Konrad were internally occupied and sat in stony silence as the train pulled into Gatwick Airport Station on a Friday morning. Zombie-eyed, they collected their weekend bags and moped to the platform alongside hordes of smiling travellers, jaunty in anticipation of their far-flung holidays. Lucy gazed out of the passenger window as Amanda pulled her Audi SUV into Gatwick Airport's drop-off point. She quickly got out, laboriously lifted her heaving suitcase from the back and dragged it over to a waiting group of musicians without word or thanks to her sister. Amanda shook her head as she peered through impressively narrowed eyes at Lucy, intensely standing with her back to the car. She will-span away in sibling-induced fury, something she'd soon regret as she immediately ground to a halt behind traffic at a nearby roundabout. Sat together on the plane, Nick and Konrad continued to ignore each other, much to the pleasure of the young man asleep against the window. Sat in the middle, Konrad sank mini bottles of red wine with his earphones plugged in, while Nick contentedly drew in his sketch pad. At one point, they accidentally brushed elbows, but they simply twisted their bodies to affirm their continued dislike for each other. Occupying the first two seats on a separate flight to Tenerife, a band manager chatted enthusiastically with a bearded roadie about a dramatic lighting sequence he'd envisaged the previous night on a belly full of tequila and painkillers. Next to them, lost in another dimension, somewhere among the fleecy clouds, Lucy gazed out the window at the brilliant sun-flared blues and whites, oblivious to the conversations and decisions being made by colleagues around her. Nick calmly sketched in his pad, while Konrad fidgeted in his seat, trying to sleep against the headrest. He soon gave up and grabbed the in-flight magazine Super Celestial from the seat pocket. The celebrity queen of the day, Corsica Coleman, was splashed across the front cover. Plugging her position as judge on a hit British talent show, as well as her headlining appearance at the Tenerife Summer Festival, Konrad tutted to himself for so long that it began to sound like a drum roll. "Look at this," he said with disgust. "Another uncreative corporate Barbie doll headlining a rock festival. What's the world coming to, eh?" he said loudly, forgetting he was supposed to be ignoring his travel companion. He sat upright and engrossed himself in the article, pretending he hadn't just broken the silent treatment he'd personally prescribed. Nick, of course, heard every word, but was pleased he didn't have to acknowledge it with a reply. Konrad read on, ashamed to find himself drawn into the rags to riches story of the blonde beauty from Birmingham, who was chosen above thousands to lead the manufactured girl band Zesty. He hated himself for being interested in how she'd overcome her obese, nerdy childhood and blossomed into a competition-winning stunner who had 4 consecutive number ones with the group before going on to judge the popular talent show The Future. He physically pinched himself for reading a trivial section on her personal life and how she'd recently separated from fellow celebrity Joey Williams and sought help for cocaine addiction, recently leaving rehab a brand new person. Konrad stuffed the magazine back in a seat pocket after learning that an autobiography was due for release at Christmas. He rocked angrily in his chair, frustrated at not being able to vent. The man by the window suddenly woke, fluttering his eyelids as he gathered his bearings following a satisfying doze. He wiped his mouth with a sweatshirt he'd used as a makeshift pillow, and Konrad was on him like a shot. He took out the magazine and thrust it under the man's face, pointing at the photo of Corsica Coleman leaving rehab wearing a stunning dress and radiant smile. "Look at this," he whined. "Another uncreative corporate Barbie doll headlining a rock festival. What's the world coming to, eh?" Lucy was enthralled in the same article, admiring a photo of Corsica's love rap boyfriend Joey Williams. He looked a lot like Nick, she thought, and weighed up the comparisons. She concluded that Nick was probably more attractive because Joey appeared a little too prim and metrosexual. She soon snapped out of her daydream and internally berated herself for such insanely girlish thoughts. Stretched out on their beds in the whitewashed room of Hotel Las Arenas, a 3-star hotel overlooking the main beach and boulevard of El Medano, a small resort in the south of Tenerife, Nick and Konrad stared at the ceiling in silence as sunlight poured through the balcony doors. When Konrad burst into rage at a particularly persistent fly, Nick decided to go on the balcony, leaving his friend to fence his winged foe with a rolled-up copy of The Guardian. Nick looked down at the plaza and main section of bars and restaurants. Already a small group of neo-hippies had congregated along the beach wall, mingling with tourists and locals. They were selling handmade trinkets and artisan jewellery. Some were playing guitars and bongos, trying to make enough money for food and wares. His father wasn't there though. Nick looked at the string of bays that ran the length of town, concluding at the foot of the imposing Montagna Rocca and surrounding reserve. Somewhere around there, after the final row of bars and windsurf centres, lived his dad. He was probably there now, washing clothes in the sea or preparing an early evening fire. Nick planned to visit him after the festival, but didn't fancy staying in a room to be ignored by Konrad, so he grabbed his belongings and headed out for a stroll. Konrad only realised he had left the room after the door slammed, pausing from his fly ruckus to reflect on the ridiculous situation they found themselves in. They were on a weekend break in Spain to celebrate Nick's birthday. Konrad was supposed to support him make contact with the father he hadn't spoken to in years. Yet here they were, childishly ignoring each other. As he reflected, the fly attempted an audacious attack on the inside of his right ear, coming in fast and low for maximum irritability. It felt it had the better of Konrad as it neared, commencing its noisy flyby upon arrival at the auditory canal. But it was promptly sent tumbling by a rolled-up newspaper and the instincts of a man who needed to finish his train of thought without interruption. Unaware of his Jedi-like disposal of the irksome insect, Konrad grabbed the room key and went to find Nick. Lucy was also feeling antisocial as she unpacked in her upmarket hotel room with band members frolicking loudly next door. The sun was setting on a pensive day of low energy, and she went to the balcony overlooking the sprawling area of Costa Adeje to enjoy the vibrant natural display painted across the sky. Lucy's knots eased as the sea breeze caught her breath. Her hair blew softly as she gazed at the tiny lights sparkling up along the coastline and she smiled for the first time that day. Darkness began to descend over the colourful remnants of an indifferent period, and Lucy breathed a sigh of relief. She dashed inside, snatched her key off the bed, and went to enjoy a stroll in the balmy night air. In the lift on the way down, she took out her phone and sent a single-worded message to Amanda. It simply said, "Sorry." Although Nick was in a bar 20 metres from the hotel, chatting to a group of dark Canarian girls in broken English, Konrad failed to notice him. Mainly because he didn't make it out of the hotel. Instead, he found himself mesmerised by the receptionist as he skipped down the steps into the small foyer. She consumed his attention, and all thoughts of patching things up with Nick evaporated with her every facial expression, whilst she pleasantly dealt with guests at the front desk. He watched her for an uneasy amount of time, his head tilted like a mentally challenged poodle. It was incredible. She was exactly like Penny Albright. He'd never encountered a strong association between his ex and someone else before. She was utterly lovely to him, and for the first time in years, Konrad was spellbound. His legs lost all stability, and he felt as dizzy as a stoned squirrel. He gathered himself when the guests left the reception and the Penny lookalike returned to her typing. He had to speak to her, but what would he say? He searched his mind for a tourist-related question to break the ice, something related to excursions or local events. If she was friendly enough, maybe he could swing the conversation round to the festival and subtly introduce a social element. As he approached the desk, he decided on boat trips. He was going to ask about dolphin tours and slowly built up the confidence to extract basic information and deduce interest. "Want to go to the festival with me tomorrow?" he blurted out instead, wearing the same gormless poodle expression as when he first saw her. She looked up from her keyboard and made eye contact. Konrad's pulse quickened double time. Expressionless, the girl held her gaze, sizing him up and testing his nerve. He had to bashfully look away several times, but always returned to meet her eyes, which she liked. It was nice, she decided. He wasn't exactly James Dean, not by a long shot, but he seemed sweet and had an intense energy that she found interesting. "I'm already going," she said sharply with an East European accent, which I'm going to avoid for PC reasons. "Oh," he replied, sensing disinterest. "Saturday's my day off," she said, and returned to her computer. Konrad delayed, unsure how to take the remark. He concluded that both her comments, although vague, were a rejection, and lightly tapped the desk with his fingertips and turned to leave. "Although, I finish in an hour if you fancy a drink and discuss going together." The words took a moment to sink in, but when they did, Konrad wore a smile only seen on dances in cabaret spectaculars. He leaned over the desk. "Then I'll see you in 1 hour." And he shot upstairs to shower and spruce. He sent Nick a message on the way to his room. Yes, XX. A romantic comedy about lost love and lookalikes. The message. "You won't believe it. I just pulled. Going for a drink. Sorry about before." Lucy also failed to leave her hotel. She got as far as a reception bar, where a smart Spanish barman with spectacles and a side parting served her daiquiris until the early hours of the morning. Join me next time, won't you? For Chapter 8, Rock and Rot. The book Blurb. Nick and Lucy forge an unlikely alliance after they discover their lust for dead ringers of lost loves and help each other meet eligible suitors on London's dating scene. Trouble looms when friends and siblings grow concerned at their obsession for chasing memories, and with problems mounting around their intensifying relationship, they soon find their journey takes a heart-stopping turn. Nick's best friend Konrad is nursing an aching heart of his own, but befriends beleaguered celebrity Corsica Coleman, following a fateful encounter that would shape their very future. Together, they launch a series of high-profile events that will halt plans to develop an area of London Heathland, derail a tyrannical tycoon, and alter everyone's lives beyond imagination. XX, a righteous comedy about love, friendship, and obsession. Lee Bullen is the best-selling author of Beset, XX, and numerous comedies and novelettes. He previously worked as an illustrator and screenwriter, but now solely devotes his time to crafting natty novels. His personal interests include squirrel romancing, ferret fondling, and stringing the guitar. His more intelligible writings are available in paperback and ebook at Amazon. Please buy, subscribe to this channel, like these videos, leave comments, fawn over me day and night, worship me. Send me gifts, expensive, lavish presents. And until then, Chapter 8, Rock and Rot. I'll see you then.